Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Farm Talks. I am Indrashekhar Singh and today we will be talking about palm oil. Yes, you heard that right. We are going to be talking about how palm oil affects agriculture, biodiversity and our food. Now you must be wondering, what is palm oil? Palm oil is a cooking oil extracted from the African palm oil tree. Now, this tree is no longer restricted to Africa, but has been spreading all over the world in parts of Indonesia, Malaysia, India, Kenya, Nigeria, Thailand. This tree has been part of the imperialist project of spreading agri-commodities all over the world. That's how this tree found itself with the Dutch in Indonesia and in Malaysia. But now fast forward a little bit. Today, this plant or this particular oil is the favorite of the industry. And that is the reason, as per reports, 50% of all products that urban Indians use have palm oil in them. What do I mean by that? Well, just turn your toothpaste around, or your soap, or any of your cosmetic products. There is a very high chance that you will find palm oil in it. But palm oil is not just restricted to cosmetics and healthcare products. All your vanaspati oils, all your hydrogenated oils, and in fact, every time you're eating outside in the restaurants or outside your home, most likely you are eating palm oil and items which are fried or have been baked using palm oil. So palm oil today is the cheapest, one of the cheapest oils available in India, and it's spreading its wings all over. So why has palm oil been in the news? Well, thanks to Narendra Modi ji, who said that 11,000 crores will now be invested in the Northeast and Andaman to promote palm oil plantations. The Modi government wants to create an additional 6.5 lakh hectares under the plantations. So in the next 5 years, the Modi government wants India to have 10 lakh hectares of palm oil plantations, most of which will be in the pristine Northeast and in the biosensitive Andaman zones. Now, agri-scientists have been for many years saying that palm oil is a great product, palm oil is going to help India get more edible oil, and we will finally be able to lift the burden of the heavy edible oil forex reserve bill that we foot every year. But is it so? Is it good on questions of the environment? Does it have socio-economic impacts which are also beneficial? To understand these, we have a voice from the Northeast talking about the palm oil plantations and what they can do.
A few weeks ago, we got the news that the government of India had decided to go ahead with a palm oil plantation project in Meghalaya and Northeast. This was quite shocking to us in Meghalaya because Meghalaya and Northeast are part of the Indo-Burma biodiversity hotspots. And palm oil plantation, as we have seen from Malaysia and Indonesia, has brought a lot of devastation to the natural ecosystem. And here in Meghalaya and Nagaland, we have a lot of diversity. And that diversity is not just in terms of natural biodiversity, but also agro-biodiversity, which is the food, the plants, the animals, the organisms that are used by human beings for food. And we in Meghalaya, in NESPAS, we did a survey in Meghalaya and Nagaland regarding the biodiversity that is present in our area. And we found that on an average, there are more than 200 food plant varieties which people use for consumption, and half of those come from the forest. If we have palm oil plantation and it leads to destruction of the forest, a lot of this food will be lost, which will greatly impact the food security of the people in our communities. And another very, very important aspect of palm oil plantation is that in Northeast we have institutions which are meant to protect our land rights. But with coming a palm oil plantation, what it will do is that it will lead to a transfer of our land, indigenous land, into the hand of the corporates. And this in fact is an attempt for corporate land grab in our region. What this will do is that it will lead to a lot of landlessness in our communities, and that will lead to rise in poverty. With destruction for our forests and with losing for our land, our people become more and more poor, and that will lead to a loss of our culture also, our heritage also, because forests, the environment and tribal society and indigenous people, they have a very strong link. So our very own identity as indigenous people is at risk because of this palm oil plantation, and therefore we would like it to stop.
You heard him correct. But keep in mind also the international scenario. While India is announcing ambitious plans for expanding its palm oil industry, there are countries such as Sri Lanka, which have already had palm oil plantations for decades, and they've now recently come out and said that we no longer will have these plantations and have announced a plan to phase them out and have completely banned future palm oil plantations. So is Sri Lanka stupid, or are they not seeing they don't care about edible oil security? I think the answer needs a little more analysis. Sri Lanka is thinking for its people, it's thinking for its biodiversity, and thinking for the environment and its water resources at large. Speaking to us more on this issue will be an expert from Sri Lanka who will tell us about the reasons why Sri Lanka has banned palm oil plantations.
In the year 2021, Sri Lankan government decided to ban further expansion of oil palm by way of a gazette notification signed by none other than the president himself, citing mainly the environmental and social impacts on oil palm cultivation. Now, this decision was taken based on sequence of previous decisions that were taken and based on a comprehensive all stakeholder report prepared by the Central Environmental Authority of Sri Lanka in partnership with the Ministry of Plantations and other research bodies including universities and other environmental regulators in Sri Lanka. Now, like I said, this is not a surprise decision because in the year 2018, the government through the National Economic Council decided that oil palm expansion have significant great impact on our environment, and then in 2019 a subsequent cabinet decision was taken to completely stop further expansion of oil palm. But this year 2021 it was legalized by way of a gazette notification. Now in Sri Lanka further expansion of oil palm is prohibited, and oil palm planted in sensitive ecosystems are to be removed year on year basis so that the ecosystems can thrive. Now, if you look at the reasons behind the oil palm ban in Sri Lanka is mainly due to environmental issues. Of course, there are social and labor related and health related impacts, but mainly it's environmental. If you look at the way the oil palm have been cultivated, the areas it have been cultivated, mountains were cut, forests were cut, plantation reservations were cut, and hilltops were cut, and platforms were built, were cut in these mountains so that the plants can be established. You had plenty of so much of agrochemicals put for oil palm, and then plenty of soil degradation. Degradation was so high that topsoil was losing at a rapid pace. And if you look at the biodiversity impacts, there was plenty of biodiversity issues. In fact, the oil palm was replacing forest and rubber forest. Now, rubber is a very environmentally friendly monoculture or crop in Sri Lanka, but oil palm as a monoculture has devastating impacts. So the impacts were varying in terms of climate change, the microclimate change, and the temperature changes, the water scarcity, because oil palm plants require roughly about 500 liters of water every single day. So this basically became big issue. The community learned the impacts of it and the experience of it, and they opposed it, and therefore the government had to ban further expansion. So I believe for India, there is a great lesson from Sri Lanka, mainly because Sri Lanka has experienced the devastating impact of oil palm on all aspects, whether it's the climate, like I said, the microclimate, or the weather, whether it's the water scarcity, whether it's the pollution coming out of oil palm factories, or whether it's biodiversity impacts. Now, if you look at even to pollinate oil palm, you can't do it with our bees and our natural pollinators. They bring down something called African oil palm weevil to pollinate. Now, just imagine the impact on the insects and the weevils and other native endemic species, especially on the pollinators itself, because rubber, for instance, which they replaced from oil palm, was very pollinator friendly, very wildlife friendly, but you have a underbrush, you have a canopy cover, all that, but with oil palm you have nothing. So when the rain comes, all the topsoil gets washed to the rivers, and then it gets filled up, sediment gets filled up, and the rivers gets filled up, it gets muddied, the aquatic fresh water species are getting extinct, the eggs are getting destroyed, and there's plenty of environmental disasters involved in oil palm expansion, oil palm cultivation. I think these are great lessons for India. India must look at the impacts of oil palm, mainly because Sri Lanka and India has much better good edible oil crop in coconut. Coconut is very environmentally friendly. It can be multi-crop, it can be diversified, it provides shelter to a lot of wildlife, it can be pollinated with our natural pollinators. Coconut oil is much better, coconut tree is much better. In fact, coconut tree and our culture is so combined and it gives us everything. But oil palm, it does only give you oil, but it destroys the entire environment.
Now, is Sri Lanka alone in taking such a drastic step? Well, I don't think so. There is a growing movement in one of the largest producers of palm oil, Indonesia and in Malaysia, to ban palm oil plantations. The case in Indonesia is slightly more dire because palm oil plantations are responsible for the destruction of rainforest. It is also responsible for land grab, for conflicts with indigenous people, bad health, and other such related problems. So Indonesia went ahead and put a 3-year moratorium on the palm oil plantations. Today, that demand has grown, and now the people of Indonesia are demanding a complete ban like Sri Lanka. For more on this, we are joined by an expert from Indonesia.
Indonesia's forests, the third largest rainforest on Earth in particular, have critical role to play in the fight against global climate change and biodiversity crisis, while also supporting life for almost 95 million people who depend their life on them. For many local and indigenous communities, forests are at the core of their daily livelihood. Forests are also fundamental in ensuring that many cultures in Indonesia continue to thrive. However, Indonesia's rainforests have been cut down for commodities like palm oil, pulp and paper, and timber products, driving deforestation and the building of roads through intact rainforests, all for cheap forest-destroying commodities like palm oil. We are losing our tropical rainforests at an alarming rate. Over the past 2 decades, Indonesia has lost nearly 25 million hectares of tree cover, with over 9 million hectares of primary forest lost forever. Vast areas of Indonesia, 22 million hectares of peatlands, similarly being degraded by logging and industrial agriculture expansions such as palm oil, releasing carbon bomb to the atmosphere. In 2018 alone, over 339,000 hectares of primary forests were destroyed. Indonesia is seeing its vibrant rainforests converted into industrial plantations for palm oil and pulp and paper, the two biggest drivers of deforestation in the country, where very little biodiversity can thrive. The impact on Indonesia's biodiversity has been enormous, including Sumatran tigers, rhinos, elephants, and orangutans pushed in the brink of extinction. The expansions of industrial agriculture like palm oil also significantly responsible for the violence of indigenous peoples. Hundreds of cases of documented conflict between companies and communities had highlighted uncounted violations of traditional land rights on palm oil plantation. Their plans to expand into new markets and countries has threatened to increase pressure on the last tropical rainforest in Indonesia and other tropical forest regions like India. We don't want the cost of deforestation, biodiversity loss, and human rights violations also happen in India. Due to the expansion of palm oil commodities, we need to stand together in solidarity to make sure that rainforests in Indonesia, India, and any other country standing intact, and make sure that palm oil companies accountable for upholding local and indigenous rights.
You heard her very well. How palm oil plantations are not just killing humans and biodiversity, but also driving animals such as the tiger and the orangutan to extinction. So the big question now arrives, what is this all a part of? Do we really need palm oil plantations to satisfy our edible oil demands? Or is it a part, again, of food imperialism that is now holding and clutching on to the Northeast? To understand this issue of food imperialism and the corporatization of palm oil, we have with us Dr. Vandana Shiva. Dr. Shiva, it is an honor to welcome you to our show. Dr. Shiva has not only been an environmental philosopher, but also has been my mentor and guide in the world of agriculture and sustainability. So, Dr. Shiva, welcome back to Farm Talks. And today we want to know from you, what does palm oil plantations mean for the Northeast? And what are the ecological costs of expanding palm oil plantations in Andaman and in the Northeast?
I would like to take you back to the roots of a problem of giving up the country that has the richest culture of edible oil, the richest biodiversity of edible oil, the longest science of eating good oils through Ayurveda. How is it landed in an edible oil mess? It begins with what I call the Macaulay syndrome of food. Now, Macaulay said, got to teach them, they're too prosperous, got to teach them to think they're inferior, and all the junk they get from us is superior. And that's how we will conquer India. That's how the earlier British Empire got created. And in 1991, when the Dunkel draft came, those who had prepared bad food, chemical food, ultra-processed food that has given the world chronic diseases said, now we must crush India's rich biodiversity and food culture. And they started to dump GMO soya. And we had to do a sarson satyagraha. Today, the fact that we are dependent on imports of edible oil is because of that period of unnecessary imports of bad oil with huge subsidies from the US government and from the Indian government. Now, the proposal of growing palm oil to overcome the dependency on imports is wrong at 3 levels. It's wrong because the central government cannot make decisions about our forests. There are 2 laws that implement the rights of the forest dwellers. The first is PESA, the Panchayati Raj Extension to Scheduled Areas Act. The second is the Forest Rights Recognition Act. I was part of the drafting of the second and the implementation of the first. So in any decision that affects forests and forest dwellers, the highest competent authority is the forest community, not the panchayat, not the district collector, but the community as a whole. Now, that process is the constitutive process. Number 2, our forests of Andamans, our forests of the Northeast are the last remaining pockets of rich biodiversity. We have watched in just this last 1.5 years, 2 problems emerge from destruction of forests. COVID and SARS and H1N1 and Ebola and HIV, all of these new diseases that humanity had not experienced, or the monkey disease in the Western Ghats, are all results of deforestation, invasion into forests, and the new viruses and new epidemic diseases are emerging. The second is, just look around you. Cut a forest, you get a flood. The Chipko women taught us this in the early 70s. You destroy a forest, you'll get flood. Look around the country, look at the floods, take the cost of floods. That is the first externality. Second is these rich biodiversities to be destroyed for a bad experiment that has failed in Indonesia, where the forest will be gone, violation of tribal rights, virus of the rights of the wildlife. 2030, there'll be no forest in Indonesia. And we think that because that will be finished, now let's destroy ourselves. I don't know what this Macaulay syndrome has done to our beautiful civilization, where doing the wrong that the empire does to us, if we do it ourselves, suddenly it becomes self-reliance. The final, of course, is the 30-year history of forcing bad oil on the Indian people when we have good oils. We have defended the sarso, we've defended the linseed. I've had to do the satyagraha on defending Gandhi's ghani. I think, Indra, if I remember right, you were part of it.
Vandaji.
I think you were with me.
Yes, we were together in Wardha, and you organized such a big national protest. I remember very clearly.
And so here is Gandhi's ghani, and Gandhi protected the small farmer, the small artisan, and the self-reliant Swadeshi economy of this country. That is the way we have to go forward, and that Swadeshi economy means hands off the forests, stop the palm oil, regenerate the biodiversity of your oil seeds rather than continue the damage. The dependence on edible oils is a 30-year mistake of globalization. 30-year mistake. That mistake can be corrected, just like we became independent of the British Empire and said we will not have famines. And we created a food security system. We can correct this 30-year recolonization mistake, and that's what Navdanya does. And that's what we need to do. Earlier, I did it because I believe that seed should be in our hands. Seed security is national security. Seed sovereignty is national sovereignty. Seed freedom is national freedom. Today, I know this work has to be done because the planet's health is at stake. Our health is at stake. And the palm oil insanity is threatening both ecology and the ecology of our health. And it's wrong at every level.
Vandana ji, my last question to you is, food such as sugarcane and cotton in the past have been used for imperialistic agendas. Do you think that now palm oil will be used for the same?
Palm oil will be used for the same, because if you look, I think the point is we are not doing enough homework. Palm oil, and if I have till, I can make oil myself, or I can make groundnut oil or alsi oil or mustard oil in a kachi ghani. These were shut down in the first attack on India's oil. 98, that's when I did the Sarso Satyagrah with the women of the slums of Delhi. And we met the president of India, and the kachi ghani oil came back. We saved kachi ghani ka tel. We are putting up kachi ghanis everywhere. So what is food imperialism? This is what I fight, because I love my country. I love our freedom. This is what I've given my life to. Number one, food imperialism is Macaulay saying, stop them from eating their good food and force them to eat bad food. Who controls bad food? 4 corporations that control the seed, 4 corporations that control the trade, and 4 corporations that control processing. So just look at who will do the trade. Just look at who does the processing. Palm oil needs solvent extraction plants, just like soya oil needs solvent extraction plants. It can't be done on an artisanal scale. So this is a guarantee of destroying what remains of the edible oil economy, because there is no way the palm oil economy can exist without a subsidy. Already that project is 82,000 crores. 82,000 crores given to the kachi ghanis. 82,000 crores given to the small farmers to create mixes of oil seeds, pulses, cereals, which is what India's food heritage has been. That is where that money should be going, to regenerate our freedom and regenerate our food. If in Gandhi's time, cotton was the empire, if in Gandhi's time, he brought back the charkha. I have always said the seed is our charkha, the seed is our spinning wheel, but now food has to become our spinning wheel, because the empire, the satanic mills are the satanic mills that make palm oil and soya oil.
Thank you very much, Vandana ji, for your comment. Now, there are other issues associated with palm oil also. The government, as it announced that they're going to be increasing the land under palm oil plantations, the Forest Department came out with a new notification saying that all area under palm oil plantations will also be categorized as forest land. So, what the government is doing, it's still unclear. But one thing is clear, that corporations are jumping on this bandwagon. Homegrown businesses from India that are seizing this opportunity. If you've not guessed it till now, I'm talking about Baba Ramdev and his Patanjali, who's expressed a very keen interest to expand into the palm oil sector and expand business in the Northeast. Of course, that's going to raise challenges on land, on basically land ownership, on community rights, on biodiversity, but who cares about that, right? The main problem with palm oil is not just restricted to loss of biodiversity, but also it is an extremely water guzzling crop. Per tree, it requires 80 gallons of water. It's been quite established that the use of palm oil causes cardiovascular diseases. Some reports have even indicated that palm oil can cause cancer. Now, so why is Modi ji doing all this? That is the big question. But before we get to that, let us understand the health parameters. To discuss the health, we have with us Anju Venkat, who's going to talk to us about what palm oil does to your body.
So let's start by first looking at what is food. Every species in nature eats food to create its own fuel and its own structure, which means that all food is broken down in the body by the body to create fuel, and every part of our structure, be it bone, muscle, hair, or skin. But what we need to remember is that this action happens in the body by the body. So we don't eat hair to produce hair. We need to give it the right raw materials, and it is the body's job to convert it into the fuel and the structure that we need. How has nature designed this food? Efficiently, so that it can be broken down in a manner that gives us these nutrients as quickly as possible. So for example, when we eat a groundnut or a coconut, there is carbohydrate on the outside and oil in the inside. For the breakdown in our body is first through carbohydrate in your mouth and stomach, and only then the fat. This way, the oil doesn't stick in the system and the process of digestion becomes efficient. But when we eat a potato chip, it's just the opposite. There is oil on the outside and the carbohydrate on the inside. And therefore, the body will take much longer to break it down to create its own fuel or nutrients. Now, when we make anything fried through coconut oil or mustard oil or ghee, any saturated fat, because it has a smell, because there is taste in it, our body is programmed to know when to stop eating by our 5 senses. Now, what happens with palm oil? The intention of palm oil is not for creating nourishment of food in our body. The intention of palm oil is to use it to create longer shelf life of the food, and therefore it is used in all processed packaged food, from your biscuits to ice cream to baby food to fried. All processed packaged food has palm oil. What is the second intention of palm oil? Palm oil is colorless, tasteless, and odorless. So what happens because of this? Our 5 senses don't know when to stop eating, and that is the second intention of processed packaged food, for you to eat more and buy more, and we move into a domino. Now, what do we need to remember again and understand? The way our human brain is designed is that we respond to anything that we see or feel or hear. It's an automatic response. But with palm oil, the response is not going to be immediate, because the consequences of palm oil are not felt immediately. What are its consequences? It clogs your arteries. It can create obesity. It can create ADHD because of the saturated fat it has, and because the volumes that you will eat will always be higher. Now, that impact is not going to be seen immediately. It's only going to be seen later. And how is that impact supported or adjusted? By the human body and the earth. Because the earth and the human body focus on copability and adaptability. So our body copes and adapts just like the earth will cope and adapt to cultivation of palm oil. And that repercussion, because it's long term, is not going to be sensed by us. Because the nature of palm oil is colorless, odorless, tasteless. So simply put, is palm oil a food for nourishment and a food through which our body will get fuel?
The big question again, do we really need to start putting 11,000 crores in an oil that causes cancer and is detrimental to our health? I don't think so, and neither should you. The way it seems to me is that palm oil is becoming the new sugarcane and cotton. So why is the government doing all this? If palm oil is actually so good and so full of so many good qualities, why don't we adopt it in our culture? Why don't we have samosas or mithais and other sweets that are advertised that this is purely fried in palm oil? Why doesn't pure palm oil become the symbol of taste and health? The simple answer is that because palm oil does not give us health and palm oil is not give us taste. Palm oil is necessary and is being pushed onto the country because it is a highly corporatized commodity, and the profits of each step of the process go to industry and not to the people and not to the farmers. Also keep in mind that palm oil can be easily manipulated. Each year there is a fall and rise in palm oil, and by committing 10 lakh hectares to palm oil, India is just giving its sovereignty and its biodiversity to the commodity market and to foreign corporations, and in return getting negative incomes and bad health. So is palm oil the only alternative? Do we have any other solutions? The answer is that we have solutions. We only have to look a little harder. Now, our next and final guest on the show is an olive farmer from Uttar Pradesh who started a new model, a decentralized model in which farmers can multi-crop and also produce olive oil. His initiative is well within its early stages and is already producing olive oil. Let's hear to what he has to say.
Good evening. This is Ram Pratap Singh. I'm one of the founder farmers of a farmer producer organization called Chambal Agritech Incubator Producer Company Limited. We are operating out of Agra district in the Doab of Chambal and Yamuna River. We have more than 600 partner farmers now. We are the first FPO in UP which is getting into olive cultivation. Our demonstration farms are already in place, and the research work has been going on for the last 2 years, is fructifying, and with our partner farmers coming this month, we are going to put almost 500 hectares under olive cultivation. And the end product out of the olive plantations that will come up in the state of Uttar Pradesh is going to be olive oil and olive green tea from the leaves, which is possibly one of the healthiest forms of green teas available. So that's about our farmer producer organization and our initiative in the state of Uttar Pradesh. But the first question, when we talk about olives and olive oil, it's an assumption that we're talking about an alien crop or a Mediterranean crop. Well, let me educate you about this, that olives are traditionally being grown in India for thousands of years in dryland areas of North India. The old name for olive is Jaitul. And what we are trying to introduce here is a crop which is very low on consumption of water, but it is highly remunerative. And to establish that fact, I have to share with you that India at the moment imports 14,000 crore rupees worth of olive oil and olive products every year. So this initiative of ours would lead to make a dent into the import bill, definitely, and we will have a cheaper but high quality olive oil, which is a healthier option compared to some of the prevalent oils like the palm oil, which is a factory manufactured oils being imported or being made in India.
Thank you, guys. None of this is possible without your help and support.
To receive instant updates on all videos from The Wire, click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon. Pay to support independent journalism. Click the link in the description and choose the amount you want to pay.